only mode.
Welcome to our today's presentation about security awareness. My name is Martin Kowalski. I'm working with the G-Data Software AG, and we are going to talk about the first part of our security fundamentals. A few things first. The webinar itself will be recorded, and you will receive a link to this recording. You can ask questions via the panel to your right, and also we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. In general, the target audience in here should be for everyone, even if you might know a bit about IT security or security awareness. It might not hurt to refresh your memories a bit. A few information about myself. Like I said, my name is Martin Kowalski. I'm with G-Data since 2010. I started out with the national and international B2C support and changed to the international pre-sales department in 2016. So, I'm going to start with an introduction to this topic, and it said that if you know your enemies and you know yourself, you will not be put at risk, even if you have 100 battles. That's some wise words from Sun Tzu, from his famous book, The Art of War, and we can definitely say we are more or less participating in some kind of cyber war, because as you can see, the reports in our media is pointing to massive damages that have been created via cyber criminals. Alone $209 million in the first 3 months of 2016 by extorting businesses via ransomware or other ways. And I think one of the most interesting articles I've read about this topic was in Forbes, that it's projected to reach $2 trillion in cybercrime costs by 2019. Also, we had a few popular incidents. One of the latest incidents was MySpace that was attacked, or the stolen records that have been stolen from MySpace. There were around 360 million stolen records from MySpace alone. LinkedIn was also affected. That was revealed in May 2016. eBay as well, AOL, the US military itself, or even the US voter database was leaked in December 2015 with a record loss of 191 million stolen documents or records. And that's a lot. That's unbearably a lot, and something has to be done against this. And raising awareness should be one of the first steps that might mitigate the risk to be affected by one of those incidents. We have 3 security goals displayed on the right: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Those 3 security goals are designed to protect our critical data assets. For example, in our confidentiality area, we must ensure that only certain information should be known to certain people. Employees within the accounting department should not have access to the sales department files, for example, or even worse, the CEO shouldn't be worried about his documents being accessible from other employees, for example. So it's also very important that you encode your messages so only the people who are designed to read it actually can read it. and that you restrict access to a resource, given a digital resource on a server, for example, or even the access to the resource on site. For example, if you have a server room, that nobody can just walk right into this room and tamper with the hardware in here. Also, the integrity. You must ensure that your data is stored and transferred as it was intended, that nobody has tampered with the integrity of the data while transferring it. So you need ways to verify or prove the integrity of this data. And last but not least, you should be able to provide the given information to the authorized users whenever they need it, that they always will be available for them. And even if you have a faulty device that might affect your hardware or your network, that you can roll back to a certain point, or even run up with certain backup devices so you can use them as well. Today's topics are including authentication and authorization, password security. We're going to have a look on a few network connection related topics, the physical security as well, a few insights on environmental controls, a short overview of malware types, and last but not least, a quick overview on security guidelines. So let's dive in to our first topic. It's authentication and authorization. So as you can see on this sketch, you can actually use a lot on your laptop without even using your admin account. So if someone actually steals this laptop while he is logged in, he can do mostly anything because he has access to all of these resources, but hey, he can't at least install drivers without the user's permission. Taken into account should be the account security. You have options to create a guest or user or administrator account in which the guest users or the guest accounts only have the fewest privileges within the network itself. User accounts should apply the least privilege access based on their given roles. Coming back to the example I already mentioned, if somebody is working in the accounting department, he should only be able to perform actions regarding his job. So he can access his job-related resources, he can access his programs, but he doesn't have the option to access anything else. Also, the administrator accounts should only be provided to your sysadmin administrators, of course, because they are the people who have the option to manage their systems or the given systems, so they are secured, so nobody else should be interfering with his work. You could also give temporarily access rights by running certain applications with certain parameters, for example, run as administrator. So if the administrator has to work on his on a user PC, he can just use the user account itself to install, for example, an update for a critical program, and so on. Also, the user management and access review, which is mostly done by system administrators. Those are jobs like monitoring event logs, reviewing the group memberships of the users, access the control list, who has access with resource, and if there are changes in the user policies, have these user policies been granted or have they happened on accident, So this is a review or auditing that should be done regularly to ensure that these data is actually up to date, and every user only has access to the resource that he actually needs. Or if there are misconfigurations or unused or unnecessary accounts, so you can actually disable or even delete those accounts. You have a few options to use when it comes down to the authentication. For example, you can use something that you know. In this example, a password or PIN that has been created by the user or the administrator, or something you have. That might be a smart card or a token to access certain buildings or even log into your computer. Some computers might even use a little card reader in which this smart card has been inserted to actually access it. Or the most prominent one known from the movies, something you are like fingerprints or the iris scan, biometrics. That's of course the most expensive one, but this is definitely one of the safest ways to ensure that the person that is actually trying to access the resource is the person, is the real person. You can combine these authentication factors. Combining this is called multi-factor authentication. So, for example, if you combine these given factors, you have a very high security level. But even in this case, if there might be an incident like on the right, if the actual user, that laptop is encrypted, gets drugged and just tortured with this $5 wrench until he tells us the password, you can also implement a few more factors. For example, somewhere you are, that only certain IP addresses might be allowed to access the resource, or even something that you do, a certain handwriting analysis or a typing technique that is only known to you and cannot be recreated by someone else. Password security. I'm going to show you a few examples on how to do the wrong way, and this would be like this. Those are real screenshots I took from the internet. Those were broadcasts on the top left, one of the ESPN sports channel in the US. Very well in the background you can see the actual SSID name and the password to access this SSID network. To the right you can see this a little bit grim looking man that is the head of the security from the World Championship Cup from 2014. Unfortunately he didn't notice that the Wi-Fi access data is written in clearly on the background, as well as the Super Bowl on the bottom left. That was the director's room. We're showing the director's room and also showing the Wi-Fi and password for this Wi-Fi. Also, one very prominent incident was in France. It's on the bottom right. This TV channel, TV Monde 5, has been taken down after a cyber attack for 3 days straight, and they actually made some reports on it, and within one of those reports they showed one of his users working. Unfortunately they had this little sticky note attached to his screen on which you can see the username and password for this user. So I guess this might be rethinked again, so this doesn't happen again. In general, what you should consider regarding the password security. At first, a certain complexity and length within the password. So you make your passwords as strong as possible. For example, you should not use single words or obvious passwords, as you can see on the right. The login and password joke might be a little bit old, but it's still applied on some basis. You should use at least 8 characters, alphanumeric with special characters. The more characters, the better. And you should also prevent password reuse, so passwords don't get recycled. Also, something to consider would be the expiration and recovery of passwords. That you should implement a password expiry date, so the user is forced to change his password every 30, 60 or 90 days or whatever. Even if you have critical system, these changes should be considered to be changed more frequently than that. And also that you have to ensure that if you lost your password, that the process of getting a new password or resetting the old password should not be done trivially. You should implement a very formal process to be sure that the person who is requesting this password reset is actually the guy who he claims he should be. Also, you should consider enabling account lockout and disablement. For example, if too often there was an access to a user account and the password was entered wrongly too many times, it should cause or result in an account lockout. And even maybe disabling the account after a few times. You should also consider that disabling accounts might be just a normal change process. For example, I recently tried to access an old email address that I've lost their user credentials for, and I just couldn't remember. Tried to reconfigure it or try to get back to it, but in the end I just gave up, and hopefully all this account will be deleted in a few months. So you should also consider that deleting the accounts should not be done initially. Give them a time. Maybe there were some technical issues, or the actual owner of the account might be not in the office, for example. So disabling the account would be the first step. Deleting the account permanently would be the next one, but as already said, it should not be done initially. Protecting your credentials. If you're sending your credentials over the network, this communication channel should be encrypted, of course, so you are ensured that no one can interfere your communication. Also, the authentication traffic itself should be invisible to outsiders. And as we have seen during the example of the screenshots, you should not have visible credentials at your desk or your workplace. Who you might never know when there's a camera team coming around the corner and filming you and broadcasting your private user account throughout the world. Moving on to network connections. Compromised networks are often an underrated threat, since mobile devices are for example, our smartphones that are in our everyday use and our laptops connect to these wireless networks automatically. So they might be vulnerable as soon as they have connected to this network. And also one thing you should consider is that free Wi-Fi is a complementary standard in many public facilities. For example, if you visit your local library or a popular chain of coffee suppliers, you will most definitely have a free Wi-Fi available for you. There are a few ways how wireless attacks could be deployed. For example, you could have rogue access points or evil twins, which might be spoofed or cloned networks that are legitimately deployed on someone's premise, but in this case have been spoofed or cloned to the attacker's needs. Also, it is possible that some outsiders try to interfere with your wireless communication by jamming or disrupting your regular wireless networks that in general degrades or denies the service of the wireless network overall. And also an important thing that might have been forgotten, but I think it's coming back again. It's called war driving or war shorting. By using certain Wi-Fi exploits. As you can see on the right, this little Pringles can is actually a wireless antenna, a homemade wireless antenna. I think it costs around $12 US dollars to create one of these things, and you have a very potent receiver for wireless signals in your car or at hand, as you can see, because it's not really bigger than the Pringles can itself. You can easily transport it from A to B. And if you might leave your office and you see strange signs on the ground or on your premises that might look like this, it might hint to free Wi-Fi networks or even MAC addresses or accounts that have been hacked and can be exploited locally or potentially. If you see something like this, you should contact your administrator immediately, because somebody has actually gained access maybe to the network, or is in the process of trying to get access to it. So that's something you should be considering. Also, are two ways that are relatively new to our wireless attack vectors. That might be bluejacking or blue snuffing. It's like interfering with Bluetooth communications, mostly between mobile clients. One's designed, bluejacking itself is designed to steal the data that might be transferred during this process, or blue snuffing, exploiting certain Bluetooth vulnerabilities to spam or to send spam during the while using this connection. Also, very widely applied wireless attack exploit, I would say, might be exploiting default passwords on routers, for example. Many users don't change the default passwords, so they can actually access these routers by just entering the default password. So if you get a new device or get new passwords that might be default passwords, you should consider changing those immediately. Let's have a quick look on wireless encryption protocols. The first encryption protocol I'm going to talk about is WEP, Wired Equivalent Privacy. It was one of the first connections protocol that was widespreadly used on the wireless systems, but due to vulnerabilities that were found in 2001, this encryption method for wireless connections is no longer used, or should no longer be used. The next one, the follower of WEP, was WPA, Wi-Fi Protected Access, which was a short-term workaround after the vulnerabilities have been found in WEP, which is by now also vulnerable to attacks. Our current standard is WPA2, Wi-Fi Protected Access 2, which is our latest and the most secure encryption method by now. And there is also an enterprise version. It's called WPA2 Enterprise encryption, which uses an additional radius server for authentication of the user itself. If you are connected, or if you look at your wireless connection right now and you see this is just a WEP or WPA wireless network connection, you should consider the disconnection of this network immediately, since the traffic between the client and the network itself can easily be captured and monitored by common freeware tools that are available on the internet. Moving on to wireless security, you have the option to deploy a certain MAC filtering, since every device that tries to access this network has a certain MAC address, so you can actually filter only those devices to your network that are allowed to do so. Also, you have the option to manage your SSID, the service set identifier. This is actually the broadcasted name of your network, your wireless network. So for example, if you just say, okay, I don't want the name of my SSID or wireless network to be broadcast, I can disable this option, and only people who know the SSID, the name of the wireless network, can actually connect to this network as well. Of course, password management, we've talked about this before. Certain password standards should be adhered to and implemented as well. Same rules go to the wireless security as with the user or the authorization accounts. Not to write down visibly those passwords where everybody can see it. Also, maybe implementing a captive portal. This is an example. If you connect to a certain network and try to access the internet, you will be redirected to a certain authentication portal in which you have to authenticate yourself before you can actually use this resource. You should also perform regular site surveys to control if your wireless signal is maybe broadcasting too far. So the wireless signal itself is maybe widely available far beyond your own premises. So anyone else who isn't on your premises might be able to access the wireless signal because it's broadcasting this far. And if you are unsure about your wireless security, at least use a VPN tunneling program to be sure that the traffic that is transferred over the network is at least encrypted. Physical security is our next topic. Those are things that you should consider if you redesign a certain security guideline or build a new security guideline from scratch, that you use, for example, certain hardware locks. Very popular are token-based hardware locks. The example I had earlier, that only certain people have access, for example, to the server room, that you equip your hardware lock to the server room with this token lock, so only the administrator or persons who have access to these tokens are allowed to enter the room. Also mainly used in security rooms are man traps. Sounds wild, but there are only multiple doors, there's only one at a time for one person at a time. So there's a little barricade, for example. Video surveillance and CCTV, fencing, proper lighting, mostly applied on parking lots or the premises itself, to be sure that the security of the premise has not been breached. Also deploying signs or alarm systems to the premise might be helpful to prevent accidental access to your premises, and also security guards as a personal solution to ensure the security on your site. Barricades and protected distribution system mean like that you can only access your premise via this man trap in combination, for example, that you have to stand in line to access the premise or certain rooms, and each and every one can be controlled individually. When we're talking about control types, we have to differ between three different types. The first one would be the technical side. That would be the access control, audit and accountability, identification and authentication, and the system and communications protection. We widely talked about this already. The management side of the control types would be the security assessment and authorization process, also planning the risk of certain attacks, and also considering system and services acquisition, that security is implemented from the start. The operational side of controls would be something we do right now. It's raising awareness and giving training to people. Also configuration management from this system administrator side, contingency planning, that only the resources that we have at hand are enough to be working properly, a certain incident response management, maintenance and media protection, self-explanatory actually, physical and environmental protection I'm going to talk about later, and personal security. For example, if you have your own server on site, you should consider as installing a so-called AVAC or HVAC. It's called heating, ventilating and air conditioning, to reduce the chance that there are actually fallbacks to your server, or there might be faulty devices that are coming down due to a lot of hot air. If there are a lot of loads on his server, this hot air might be responsible to fail the server itself. So it's important that you have a constant stream of cooling or cold air, so your server itself are always available. Also important would be the part of the fire suppression, since applying water to a server rack would generally be considered a very bad idea. At first, the usage of smoke, flame and heat detectors is highly recommended, because at least in the last point, if you use heat detectors, you might also be able to detect certain mismatches or even incidents that might be mitigatable. Also, if you have to use certain suppression with water, be sure that you use dry pipe, wet pipe, or pre-action systems. There is not always the threat of water coming down on your hardware, although it is actually recommended to use the fire suppression with chemicals. The halon gas is no longer manufactured due to ecological reasons, but there are options, alternatively options, for example the DuPont FM200 or the AP Halotron. Something that's rarely considered would be the so-called electromagnetic interference shielding, since all computers or hardware devices create some sort of electromagnetic interference, and you can actually apply certain metal shielding panels to your server room or to your premises to prevent this electromagnetic interference from spreading too far or even affect your other day-to-day work. For example, these electromagnetic interference can appear as noise, static noise, or some kind of, you might remember the snow within old video cassettes or tapes. That appears if the film has been played too often, that the signal or the actual media degrades in quality given the video or audio recreation. Environmental monitoring would consider the optimization of the cooling infrastructure, for example with the HVAC system I've talked about. But also you should constantly monitor and log the environment to be sure if there are no misconfigurations. Many servers also include temperature sensors by default, so you can use them as well. And even if it comes down to an emergency, you could also use portable or emergency cooling systems that might come in handy if you have incidents in which the environmental controls fail or the server might be running into risk of falling down. Moving on to our next topic would be an overview of certain malware types, in which we have to consider that malware itself is an umbrella term for malicious software, and it's used to refer to a variety of forms of hostile or intrusive software. For example, boot sector viruses that are specifically targeting the drive boot area, the classical program viruses, which might come as a part of a legitimate application, script viruses, which are specifically targeting OS or browser-based exploits, or even macro viruses that are common within the Microsoft Office environment, for example Access or Excel. If there are macros in usage, these viruses could target the user execution to be aimed at the user itself. Also multi-part viruses that might be a combination of several virus types that are infecting and spreading themselves in multiple ways. Okay. The most common malware type is the actual virus. A virus is a program that can reproduce itself but needs subsequent program execution. So somebody has to run this program to actually work. This is also the most common variant of malware type, since we discover thousands of new versions of viruses each week. So this is the most prominent one. Also, there are the so-called worms. Those programs are self-replicating. They are spreading through the network very, very fast. And only firewalls and intrusion detection systems or intrusion prevention systems can mitigate this threat of these worm programs. Adware is designed to display advertisements to your screen or during the browser usage. It often is very prominent factor to detect this kind of malware, that the system performance drastically decreases, and it's often installed with other software. Spyware are programs that are used to give you personalized ads or even give a certain exploit vector to ID theft or fraud, since this spyware is maybe able to monitor and log your browser activity or the keystrokes that you type into your keyboard. Another very prominent candidate of malware type is the so-called Trojan horse. It pretends to be a regular or a simple program which might trick the user to disable the antivirus software, since they think, okay, this is a regular program, this is a harmless program, I can execute it, and as soon as he deactivates the antivirus software and executes the program, the infection has already begun. Backdoors are often placed into the system via other malware. For example, if you have a Trojan horse and you can actually mitigate the threat of the Trojan horse, a backdoor program that might be executed at the same time by executing the Trojan horse might have opened up a backdoor to your system, which might make your system vulnerable to other attacks or attack vectors. Rootkits are modifying file systems or system files, which are often invisible to the regular operating system or the regular antivirus software during their regular behavior. So these kind of rootkits can be detected via heuristics by running antivirus scans. Also, we have the logic or time bomb. Those are programs that are based on a predefined event or time or date, since they often need a certain action to be performed at first before actually executing the malicious program. And this makes them very hard to identify and to recover from this kind of malware. Botnets are so-called robot networks. They are often placed into the system via other malware, for example, the already mentioned backdoor. Botnets can create a certain ghost network for the hacker, so he can access your local resources of hardware to his own usage. Also a very prominent candidate is the so-called ransomware or cryptoware, which logs or encrypts the system files or the system itself. It's a very prominent type of malware that's going around. The so-called polymorphic malware that changes its properties to avoid the classical signature-based detection, but this kind of malware can be detected with heuristics, real-time monitoring, and also, last but not least, the so-called armor virus, which uses nonsense or unnecessary code on this surface to make it harder to detect or reconstruct the actual work ways of this virus. Moving on to our last point, security guidelines. In general, your security guidelines can give certain instructions on how to handle security or the incidents if they have happened. Of course, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution since they are very dependent on your given infrastructure or the available resources to your network. And every detail should be taken into account. The number of devices that are currently in use, the number of users that are actually in your office day by day. There are so many factors that needs to be taken into account and must be taken into account since every detail might be important. The application maintaining and auditing is also an important point to review your logs or to be sure that if there are unauthorized accesses to certain resources, that these accesses should be terminated. These guidelines should be distributed to all of your employees since security is everybody's matter. There are small details that might bring down a whole system. For example, if there is the usual worker or employee that's on his way home and it detects some kinds of wall charging, he should be aware of what this might be, and he should inform the authorities that are responsible. This is a very, very rough sketch of security guidelines that might come into account. And these are by far not the whole list what might be relevant for your system. Like I already mentioned, it depends on which kind of hardware or resources are available on your premise. Not everything can be applied, but this might be a rough sketch on how a security guideline should be applied to a certain system to protect your critical assets. Okay, short outlook to our next webinars, next parts. On the next part of the webinar, I'll be talking about security on the job, for example, social engineering or handling mobile devices. And also in part 3, I'm going to talk about disaster prevention and recovery. If the child fell down the well, how to get it out. Otherwise, I would like to say thank you for your attendance and your interest. If there are questions regarding this webinar, feel free to ask them straight away. I'll gladly answer them. If there are questions that might come to your head, feel free to contact me via email at int-presales@gdata.de or add me on Skype. It's Martin Kowalski, GData, one word. So you can contact me anytime about this topic. Okay, seems like there are no questions coming in. I'll stay online for a few minutes. Otherwise, I'll say thank you for your attendance and your interest again. And feel free to drop by to our next part of the webinar. Have a wonderful day.